What happens when war is remembered not through explosions, but through restraint, fear, and quiet courage? British World War II cinema doesn't shout. It endures. These films were forged by people who lived through blackout nights, ration books, and sirens. In descending order, we're counting down the greatest British WWII films ever made, stories shaped by survival rather than spectacle. Number 15. The One That Got Away, 1957. Most British war films ask you to identify with the uniform on screen. The One That Got Away does something quietly radical. It asks you to understand the enemy. Based on the true story of German Luftwaffe ace Franz von Vera, the film follows a captured pilot held in Britain who repeatedly attempts escape. What makes this film endure is not action, but tone. There is no demonization, no chest-beating patriotism. Instead, there is an unsettling professionalism on both sides of the wire. The British officers are calm, procedural, almost courteous. Von Vera is stubborn, resourceful, and driven by duty rather than ideology. The film becomes less about allegiance and more about obsession, what it means for a soldier to refuse captivity even when escape seems impossible. This perspective was daring for its time. In the late 1950s, many audiences still preferred clear moral binaries. This film offers none. Visually, it is restrained to the point of austerity. Camps are functional. Countryside is cold and unromantic. The drama comes from repetition, the cycle of capture, escape, and recapture. Each attempt tightens the psychological noose. By focusing on process rather than payoff, the film aligns with Britain's most serious war cinema tradition: respect for discipline, even when worn by the wrong side. Over time, The One That Got Away has grown in stature because it refuses easy judgment. It treats war as a system that consumes everyone trapped inside it. Number 14. Ill Met by Moonlight, 1957. Ill Met by Moonlight is one of the most underseen masterpieces of British wartime cinema, and its power lies in moral unease. Based on the real-life abduction of a German general in occupied Crete, the film unfolds like a slow-burning chess match rather than a conventional action thriller. This is resistance warfare stripped of glamour. Dirk Bogarde's British officer is not a swashbuckling hero. He is tense, calculating, and visibly burdened by the consequences of every decision. The mission succeeds, but success carries weight. Civilians will suffer. Reprisals will follow. The film never lets you forget this cost. Every quiet conversation in the mountains hums with dread, not triumph. What makes the film extraordinary is its empathy toward everyone involved. Greek villagers are brave but wary. German officers are professional, not cartoon villains. Violence, when it occurs, is sudden and ugly. The landscape itself becomes a character, beautiful, ancient, and indifferent to ideology. Director Michael Powell uses silence and stillness as weapons, allowing tension to accumulate naturally. At the time of release, audiences found the film subdued. There were no rousing speeches, no obvious victory. Today, that restraint feels modern. Ill Met by Moonlight anticipates later revisionist war cinema by decades, acknowledging that even successful operations leave scars. Number 13. The Wooden Horse, 1950. If Hollywood escape films are built on momentum, The Wooden Horse is built on patience. Set in a German prisoner of war camp, the film follows three British officers who engineer an escape not through daring heroics, but relentless routine. Their plan hinges on monotony: exercise, counting, digging, and absolute silence. What elevates this film is its procedural honesty. Every step is shown, every setback matters. There is no shortcut to freedom. The tension doesn't come from gunfire, but from the fear that one small miscalculation will unravel months of work. This grounded approach makes the eventual escape feel earned, rather than staged. The performances are understated, almost documentary-like. These men are not charismatic rebels. They are professionals doing a job under impossible conditions. The camp commandant is not cruel, just efficient. That realism makes the situation more frightening, not less. Released just 5 years after the war ended, The Wooden Horse reflected a national mood that valued methodical resilience over fantasy. It helped establish the blueprint for British POW cinema long before The Great Escape reinterpreted the genre with Hollywood scale. Today, the film stands as a masterclass in controlled storytelling. No wasted scenes, no emotional manipulation, just discipline, teamwork, and time. Number 12. A Matter of Life and Death, 1946. At first glance, A Matter of Life and Death barely resembles a war film. There are no battlefields, no regiments advancing under fire, and yet few British films capture the emotional aftermath of World War II more powerfully than this one. Released just months after the conflict ended, it confronts the invisible wounds left behind, grief, survivors' guilt, and the desperate need to believe life still has meaning after mass death. David Niven plays an RAF pilot who survives a fall that should have killed him. Whether this survival is a miracle or a clerical error in the afterlife becomes the film's central question. What follows is a courtroom drama staged between earth and heaven, where love, duty, and national identity are put on trial. The war is never far away. It lingers in memories, uniforms, and the exhausted expressions of people who have seen too much. Powell and Pressburger's bold visual design, Technicolor on Earth, monochrome in the afterlife, reinforces the film's emotional thesis. Life, even when painful, is vivid. Death is orderly but hollow. This inversion was radical at the time and deeply therapeutic for audiences emerging from years of loss. The film also performs an act of cultural healing. British and American characters debate, argue, and ultimately reconcile, reflecting a post-war world trying to redefine alliances without bitterness. It insists that compassion must outlive conflict. Number 11. The Way Ahead, 1944. The Way Ahead is one of the most authentic depictions of the British Army ever committed to film, not because of combat, but because of transformation. The story begins with ordinary civilians, clerks, shopkeepers, laborers, men who did not choose war, but were claimed by it. What the film documents is not heroism, but adaptation. Directed by Carol Reed, the film carefully observes how discipline is learned, resisted, and eventually internalized. Training sequences are not romanticized. They are exhausting, repetitive, and occasionally humiliating. Yet slowly, almost imperceptibly, these men become a unit. Not because they are inspired by grand speeches, but because survival demands cooperation. When combat finally arrives, it is brief and chaotic. There is no cinematic triumph. Loss is sudden. Confusion reigns. This restraint was intentional. Released during the war itself, The Way Ahead functioned as morale-building cinema, but honest morale, rooted in realism rather than myth. David Niven's officer figure provides structure without sentimentality. Leadership here is about responsibility, not glory. The film quietly reinforces the idea that victory depends on preparation, patience, and collective effort. Over time, The Way Ahead has become a historical document as much as a drama. It captures how Britain understood itself during wartime, not as a nation of supermen, but as a society of reluctant soldiers doing what had to be done. This is British WWII cinema at its most grounded and sincere. Number 10. Hope and Glory, 1987. By the time Hope and Glory arrived, most British WWII films were steeped in nostalgia or reverence. John Boorman chose a different path. He returned to the Blitz, but through the eyes of a child. The result is one of the most emotionally honest portrayals of wartime Britain ever made. The war here is chaotic, absurd, terrifying, and occasionally exhilarating. Bombed-out streets become playgrounds. Evacuation is confusing rather than noble. Authority figures are fallible. Adults argue, children adapt. This perspective strips away mythology and replaces it with lived experience. What makes Hope and Glory so powerful is its refusal to impose adult judgment on childhood memory. Moments of fear coexist with moments of freedom. The destruction of rigid social structures creates strange opportunities for joy. Yet the film never forgets the cost. Loss creeps in quietly. Normality dissolves. Visually warm and emotionally loose, the film stands apart from earlier British war cinema, but complements it perfectly. Where earlier films emphasized endurance, Hope and Glory emphasizes resilience, the ability to find life amid ruin. In the Golden Age Classics hierarchy, this film earns its place by expanding the emotional vocabulary of WWII cinema. Number 9. Battle of Britain, 1969. Battle of Britain is not a character study. It is not intimate. It does not whisper. This film exists to preserve scale, to show in near-documentary form the sheer magnitude of the air war that determined Britain's survival. Released at the end of the 1960s, it arrived as a historical reckoning rather than a wartime rallying cry. What makes the film monumental is its commitment to authenticity. Real aircraft, real formations, real skies. Before CGI, this was the only way to show air warfare honestly, and the production spared no expense. The result is a visual record that will likely never be replicated. Every dog fight feels mechanical, exhausting, and unforgiving. Victory here is not cinematic, it is statistical. The human drama is deliberately restrained. Pilots rotate in and out. Faces blur together. Loss is sudden and unceremonious. This was a conscious choice. The Battle of Britain was not won by individual aces, but by systems. Radar, logistics, coordination, and endurance. The film respects that reality. Some critics have called the film emotionally distant. That distance is its strength. It reflects how the battle itself was experienced by many, as relentless pressure rather than heroic release. Britain did not win through brilliance. It survived through organization and resolve. Number 8. The Colditz Story, 1955. Before escape films became adventures, the Colditz Story treated escape as engineering. Based on the true experiences of Allied prisoners in the supposedly escape-proof German castle, the film focuses on method, discipline, and collective intelligence rather than individual daring. What distinguishes the film is its tone. There is no swagger, no wisecracking rebellion. These officers are calm, patient, and relentlessly focused. Escapes are not impulsive acts. They are projects measured in months. Every plank stolen, every tunnel dug, every disguise stitched carries risk. The German officers are portrayed with professionalism rather than cruelty, reinforcing the film's central tension: intelligence versus control. The enemy is not sadism, it is efficiency. That makes every success feel provisional and fragile. Released just a decade after the war, the film reflected a British desire to honor ingenuity without sensationalism. It respects restraint. Silence matters. Routine becomes resistance. The prison itself feels alive, pressing inward. In Golden Age Classics terms, this film represents British wartime storytelling at its most disciplined, where triumph is measured not in explosions, but in inches gained underground. Number 7. Ice Cold and Alex, 1958. Ice Cold and Alex is a survival film disguised as a war film. Set during the North African campaign, it follows a small group attempting to cross the desert in an ambulance while pursued by enemy forces and the environment itself. The true antagonist is not the Germans, it is heat, thirst, and exhaustion. John Mills delivers one of the most restrained performances in British cinema. His officer is worn down, haunted, and barely holding command together. Leadership here is not inspiring, it is necessary. Every decision carries weight because the margin for error is razor thin. The film's pacing is deliberate, almost punishing. Long stretches of silence mirror the desert's indifference. Suspicion creeps in as the group realizes one of their own may not be who he claims to be. Trust becomes as scarce as water. The legendary final scene, the long-awaited glass of beer, is not a reward, it is release. It represents survival, endurance, and the return of humanity after prolonged deprivation. Few cinematic moments have earned their symbolism so completely. In the Golden Age Classics hierarchy, Ice Cold and Alex endures because it understands war as attrition. Number 6. Went the Day Well, 1942. Few British war films are as quietly terrifying as Went the Day Well. Released in the middle of the war, this film doesn't imagine distant battlefields. It imagines invasion arriving politely, smiling, and speaking perfect English. Set in a peaceful English village, the story begins with German paratroopers disguised as British soldiers. By the time the truth surfaces, it is already too late. What makes the film so effective is its tone. There is no dramatic buildup. life unfolds normally. Tea is poured, conversations drift, and then violence erupts without warning. The contrast is brutal. Civilians, men, women, even the elderly, are forced into acts of resistance they never imagined themselves capable of. The film refuses sentimentality. Deaths are sudden and shocking. Patriotism is not romantic, it is desperate. Ordinary people fight not because they want to, but because the alternative is annihilation. Released when invasion still felt possible, the film functioned as both warning and psychological preparation. Visually, the countryside becomes uncanny. Familiar spaces turn hostile. Churches, cottages, and village greens become battlegrounds. The message is clear: modern war does not announce itself with trumpets. Number 5. In Which We Serve, 1942. In Which We Serve is often described as propaganda, but that label undersells its emotional intelligence. Co-directed by Noel Coward and David Lean, the film uses a naval disaster to tell a broader story about British society at war. Officers and sailors are treated not as symbols, but as people bound together by circumstance. Structured through flashbacks as survivors cling to wreckage at sea, the film moves fluidly between classes, homes, and memories. The war effort is shown as collective. Every background matters. Every loss ripples outward. This was morale-building cinema, but grounded in empathy rather than bravado. The film's strength lies in its sincerity. There is no cynicism. Courage is quiet. Sacrifice is assumed, not celebrated. Coward's restrained performance anchors the film with authority tempered by humanity. Released when Britain needed reassurance, In Which We Serve helped define the national image of unity under pressure. Yet it has aged gracefully because it focuses on emotional truth rather than slogans. In the Golden Age Classics canon, this film stands as the emotional backbone of British WWII cinema, earnest, dignified, and deeply humane. Number 4. Dunkirk, 1958. Before modern reinterpretations turned Dunkirk into spectacle, this film captured it as confusion. Dunkirk focuses not on the miracle, but on the mess. Retreat without clarity, soldiers without information, civilians stepping forward without certainty. The narrative splits between the beach and the civilian boats crossing the channel. This dual structure emphasizes disorientation. Soldiers wait, unsure if rescue will come. Civilians sail, unsure what they are sailing into. Heroism here is quiet and often accidental. Richard Attenborough's performance embodies the psychological toll of retreat. There is shame, fear, and exhaustion, but also resilience. The film avoids triumphalism. Survival is the victory. Released in the shadow of wartime memory, Dunkirk reflects how Britain actually processed the event, not as a flawless miracle, but as a narrow escape that could easily have gone wrong. In Golden Age Classics terms, this film is essential because it preserves emotional truth over legend. Number 3. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. The Bridge on the River Kwai is a war film about obsession, specifically the dangerous collision between discipline and pride. Set in a Japanese POW camp, the story follows British officers forced to build a strategic bridge for the enemy. What unfolds is not a simple tale of resistance, but a psychological duel over identity, duty, and moral blindness. Alec Guinness delivers one of the most complex performances in war cinema. His commanding officer believes that maintaining British standards, even in captivity, is a form of resistance. Order, cleanliness, and craftsmanship become weapons against humiliation. But as the bridge rises, so does the question the film refuses to answer easily. At what point does professionalism become collaboration? Director David Lean frames the jungle as both prison and mirror. Nature is lush, indifferent, and relentless. The men trapped within it slowly lose perspective. When sabotage finally enters the story, it feels less like heroism and more like tragic correction, too late to undo the damage already done. Though international in scope, the film's core conflict is unmistakably British. In the Golden Age Classics hierarchy, The Bridge on the River Kwai stands as a warning disguised as an epic. Proof that war does not just test character, it distorts it. Number 2. The Cruel Sea, 1953. If one film captures the emotional truth of Britain's naval war, it is The Cruel Sea. Based on Nicholas Monsarrat's novel, the film strips warfare of spectacle and replaces it with endurance. Long patrols, endless water, invisible enemies. The ocean itself becomes the antagonist, vast, cold, and unforgiving. Jack Hawkins' captain is not heroic in the traditional sense. He is burdened, cautious, and often haunted by decisions that cannot be undone. One of the film's most devastating moments involves choosing between saving survivors in the water or protecting the ship from submarine attack. There is no right answer, only consequences. What gives the film its power is repetition. Patrol follows patrol. Loss accumulates quietly. There are no triumphant crescendos, only brief respites before returning to the grind. This structure mirrors the reality of the Battle of the Atlantic, where victory came through persistence rather than decisive moments. Released less than a decade after the war, The Cruel Sea resonated deeply with audiences who recognized its honesty. It neither glorifies nor condemns. It observes. Number 1. The Dam Busters, 1955. No British WWII film has shaped national memory more than The Dam Busters. Based on the real RAF raid to destroy German dams, the film combines procedural detail with stoic heroism, creating a template that would define British war cinema for decades. What sets the film apart is its focus on preparation. The mission itself occupies less time than the months of experimentation, failure, and refinement that precede it. Engineers and pilots work side by side, united by a single, improbable idea. The tension comes not from enemy fire, but from the fear that the plan simply will not work. Richard Todd's understated performance reflects the film's ethos. Bravery is assumed. Emotion is contained. Loss is acknowledged, but never indulged. This restraint is not coldness. It is cultural memory. Many involved in the real operation were still alive when the film was released. Visually precise and emotionally disciplined, The Dam Busters became myth-making cinema, but grounded in reality. It celebrates ingenuity and teamwork without romanticizing war itself. In the Golden Age classics canon, this film earns its top position because it encapsulates Britain's wartime self-image, resourceful, restrained, and quietly determined. These films endure because they remember war the way Britain lived it, not as spectacle but as pressure. They value restraint over triumph, character over carnage. If history fades, cinema preserves the feeling. And in these stories, that feeling is endurance, tested, scarred, but unbroken.